Well, as you well know, my whole concept here is to, or I should say my mission, is to share some thoughts with you to help all of us to live a longer, healthier, and more productive life. And along those lines, there are basically 4 areas that we'll be discussing here and there and off and on, and they're relative to the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the thoughts we think. So today I thought I would do a little bit on nutrition and stress. You think nutrition and stress, they go together? Yes, and the way they're going to go together is we're going to talk about what is stress, how do we help to relieve stress with nutrition, also what does stress do to your nutritional body. So it's a huge subject. Obviously, there's so much to cover. We'll cover some very basic things here at this time. So let's start about the thought of really what is stress. And it's interesting because I'm sure you can think of a lot of things and you're probably dealing with stress. Have you ever seen so much, even in the news, have you ever seen so much conversation about the stressors going on all around us? And of course, a lot of that we can't control those things. But what we need to try to do is control how we handle the stress that we're dealing with. So really, what is stress? It's a feeling of emotional or physical tension. And it can come from any event, it can come from the way you think, anything that makes us feel very frustrated or angry or nervous. Any of those things can create levels of stress. So it's your body's reaction to a challenge or a demand, and oftentimes they're challenges that are very stressful for us to try to handle, or demands that we think are just too overwhelming. It's so amazing how many different things, and not all of us respond to stress the same way. And stressors are different for each of us. So let's go over a few of those things. Stress is not always bad. I want to mention that. Let's think about that for a second too. What if you didn't have some level of stress? You had an assignment, you have a deadline, and usually that can be creating a level of stress for you, but it's that level of stress that pushes you to move forward to accomplish what your goal is. So not all stress is bad. What about crossing the street? Yes, that can cause a level of stress. The traffic is heavy, or somebody's, flying up the street, and that level of stress helps to protect you. So not all stressors are dangerous or unhealthy. Some of them will keep you from danger. So let's not give it a total bad word. But let's talk about the stressors that do affect us in a negative way. Let's talk about some of the stressors and why and what they're doing, and exactly what's going on in the body that causes us to feel the way we do. It's the body and the brain automatically and physically and emotionally react to demands, react to challenges. A lot of things that we are dealing with that are maybe things we feel that are just a huge burden or huge overload for us. And they come in a lot of different categories. So basically what it's doing is activating something known as, you've probably heard this many times, the fight or flight response to danger. And then it begins to release certain hormones in the body that have different effects on us that can cause the ills that we may suffer as a result of that. And for example, adrenaline. Now, adrenaline can be a good thing, but too much of it can cause us to not feel very good. So as a result of being the positive thing and necessary, it sets the body up to respond or react more appropriately or more quickly when that's the need. So we don't want to totally knock down the stress level, but it's what we're going to talk about here is too much stress. I'm sure that a lot of you are probably thinking, yes, a lot of us are dealing with too much stress. We really do seem to be living in a more stressful surrounding and more stressful, the whole world. So it's not just us, we're all dealing with it. But again, I just want to mention, not all stress is bad. I like the part where it helps us to meet deadlines and helps us to get things done that we might have been dragging our feet a little more if it was not for the stress that pushes us to move forward. So what are some of the things we deal with? I'm sure that you're thinking a lot of different things you're dealing with stress. We know that sometimes with work you have high workloads, sometimes it's just the people you're working with. Maybe you have a boss that's not the most, just not real kind and just gives you a lot of grief. It could be job security. It could be that you have, maybe the people you're working with are challenging. What about financial issues? I know that, and especially since we've been through some more unusual situations, even recently people are talking about, wow, look at the cost of gas, it's gone up. I understand it's coming back down again. But just little things like that, and they affect us daily. They affect us in many aspects of our life. So money can cause, or the things that you need to use money for. If we don't have what we think is enough of it, causes stress. Sometimes it's, we'll call it relationship challenges. Going through a bad relationship, whether it's a divorce or just family issues, and so many things a lot of people are dealing with. And sadly, those things are often created because of other stressors that we're dealing with. Probably one of the worst things is when it affects your loved ones and you're dealing with stress with the people you love the most. Well, that'll certainly have some negative effects on the body, won't it? Sometimes we go through some, I'll call it significant life changes, like moving. That can be a huge stressor. I didn't realize that until I moved myself recently, because it's been a long time since I had to move. But yes, that can, just things that you wouldn't even think of in the moving process. It's really crazy too, because some people say, is it because there are things that you just want to keep that you don't have to keep? Well, that could enter into it. They're all stressors. So we'll talk about how these things affect our body as well. What about just our environment? Sometimes we are concerned about, is it safe where we are? Do you feel like you can leave your doors of your car unlocked or your house unlocked? Do we feel that we always have to be on guard because things around us make us feel uncomfortable? What about traffic? Oh my goodness, there's something called rage in traffic. I've just seen the most incredible things. Another one is something that maybe not an issue for everybody, but some are extremely sensitive to sounds, noise. I just heard somebody recently talking about one of those little, I guess they're a little bit like a little go-kart. The sound of putting that little cart in reverse, he told me, it was just almost unbearable what it was doing to the brain. That's a stressor for that person. May not affect everybody the same way. But then there's another section that we can look at stressors. Let's take a look. We'll call it internal stressors. And here's one that it's one of the things that I do a lot of discussion about and on, because of how this can have so many negative effects on the body. In fact, some of these things, depending on the specific stress, can have an effect on each different part of the body, different organs. I'm sure you've heard this before. Wow, that just made me sick to my stomach. Interesting. I think you'll find that many stressors can initially affect the digestive system. And by the way, that's one of the greatest area for stressors to cause health problems. We'll be talking a lot more about that on other get-togethers here, so stay tuned. What are some of the other, we'll call them internal stressors? Quite honestly, we create our own sometimes just by having a bad attitude, by having negative thinking, also by having what I'd like to call unrealistic expectations. Something needs to be done, or you're wanting to do something, or somebody else that you're working with, and your expectations are far above what reality will allow. All of those things cause stress on the body. What about the worrier? We call them a chronic worrier. They worry about everything. Are you by any chance one of those who consistently worries about things in the future? Think about that for a second. If we're worrying about what's might happening tomorrow, what can happen tomorrow, do you realize how probably futile that is? And at the same time, it is affecting your well-being. So it's one thing to worry about the things that we know are going to happen tomorrow and that we're involved in trying to make sure that they happen the best that they can. But some of us tend to worry about what if this, what if that, things that probably will never come to be, either tomorrow, the next day, next week, next year. It just is not very healthy to be worrying about things that haven't even happened. Let's get through today, and let's do the best that we can, be the best person that we can be the most positive that we can be in our thinking, in our actions, how we treat other people, how we just how we get involved in anything that we do, because it's amazing. Just a simple little thing like give somebody a smile. It is so amazing, and I've noticed this a lot more recently in just walking through a store. There are a lot of people that are walking through like they must be worrying, at least that's the look that they have. But if you give that person a smile, wow, it's amazing how it changes their whole countenance. So let's try to maintain that attitude within ourselves. So we talked about what stress is, some of the things that cause stress, and there are so many more. We all have our own stress issues, our own stressors. But one that might come as a surprise, or maybe not, one of the other causes of stress, one of the things I like to talk about too, is nutrition. Yes, nutrition can cause stress as well if it's not good. If you're living, say, on, shall I say sugar, sweets, living on, forgetting that we should be eating our fruits and vegetables every day. But bad nutrition or poor food intake can cause the body, those poor cells that need to regenerate, it can just cause a lot of stress on the body. Not only that, but if you have legitimate stress, then poor nutrition will even aggravate that. So let's look at the need for vitamins. I want to share some specific vitamins, certain nutrients, even certain foods that are especially good for helping to relieve stress and anxiety, because any little thing that we can do to help would be good, wouldn't it? So let's talk about stress. Also, one of the biggest things I want to mention is that it has such a negative effect on the immune system. I don't know about you, but it seems that I have heard more about autoimmune diseases in more recent years than I just don't remember all of that in the past. And of course, there are a lot of reasons for it and a lot of thinking about it, a lot of thought processes. I'm not so sure that we even have a really good handle on all of that at this time. But we do know that stress clearly weakens the immune system. So on our part, let's do everything that we can to keep it strong, because some of those immune disorders are incredibly disabling. And like I said, I've seen a lot more of that more recently. So let's make sure we really work on that. So in other words, let's strengthen the immune system, not doing things to weaken it. So let's talk about what constitutes good nutrition. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that particular subject right now, because as time goes on, as you well know, there's just a ton of information that would be very helpful to be a better you and a better me. What I'd like to mention at this time, though, is just simplistically, fruits and vegetables every day. Now, if you're not a meat eater, that's your choice. And of course, just make sure that you get your protein in your other healthy foods. But if you are, of course, get your protein in your meats, and make sure you have a couple of good servings of that every day. And one of the ways it's really good to do that is good seafood, poultry, grains. To be sure to add those in your diet every day. That'll go a long way in helping your body to handle stressors that are just naturally there. I'd like to talk about some nutritional supplements, and there are so many. We can't go through everything, but there are some that are outstandingly beneficial to help reduce stress when you're dealing with it, and to help your body to not be so adversely affected to the stress that you're dealing with. So let's talk about some of those things, and I bet you can guess what the very first one is. That's right, B vitamins. They are incredibly well known to be very essential in regulating several things in the body, but one is your neurotransmitters. That's kind of interesting, because when we talk about, okay, so what is that going to do? Neurotransmitters, specifically I want to mention the serotonin. It's really good in helping to regulate mood, regulate your sleep, and a huge one, your digestion. As I mentioned earlier, stress usually, any type of stress, is usually felt quickly and first I'll say in the gut, in the stomach, in the digestive system. So the B vitamins really help to soothe all of that. It stabilizes your emotional well-being. I like this one. It also helps to boost the feeling of happiness and at the same time reducing anxiety. So I just want to add that, I would like to encourage you for all of those reasons, and there's so many more, to add a complex B vitamin to your diet. And on top of that, and especially in the areas of what we're talking about here, improving the body with reducing stress levels, you might want to add a little extra vitamin B6 to the complex. And if you want to just go look that up, it has tons of additional values as well. Another great stress-reducing vitamin is vitamin D. I don't know if you've noticed people around you when you get your blood test. I'm seeing so many tests coming back saying low levels of vitamin D. It's kind of interesting, since we're supposed to be getting, or we think we're getting all we need from the sun. Obviously, of course, some people do spend a lot of time in the sun, but lack of vitamin D is huge in people with anxiety and depression. So that might be a good monitor when you get your blood test. Here's a good one, magnesium. Magnesium helps to manage stress levels as well. it's known as a calming vitamin. Magnesium is known basically as a relaxing nutrient. So that's one that, because we tend to be deficient in those. Omega-3 fatty acids has an incredibly wonderful reputation, doesn't it? For a long time, I didn't realize it was one that was associated so much with helping to reduce the levels of stress and anxiety in the body, but it is very calming. It supports brain health. It works by reducing cortisol levels. Now, cortisol levels are increased when you're dealing with stressors and anxiety and such. So then to work to help against that, the omega-3 fatty acids are very good. That particular substance is huge for so many wonderful things. Here's one that may surprise you, well, maybe not, because I notice more and more people are doing it. And it's an essential oil. You probably already guessed it, didn't you? Yes, it's lavender. What a beautiful, beautiful, helpful essential oil. It has so many benefits. It's a prized oil for its calming effects. It alleviates anxiety. It helps to improve sleep. And as you well know, how many people are losing levels of sleep because of stress, anxiety, worry, thinking about what might happen tomorrow, next week, next year. Not to mention how all of this is affecting your health, and that also becomes a worrier, doesn't it? Especially when you start having these monster headaches and aches and pains all over, increased by stress levels. But lavender is just a beautiful, beautiful essential oil because it's also anti-inflammatory. And again, we know that inflammation in the body is related to the immune system and having, it's always related to those autoimmune conditions. So let's not overlook that beautiful essential oil of lavender. Not that you have to put it on yourself. You can use a diffuser and have it in the air. It's just a wonderful, wonderful product that we can use to ease tension. So now let's talk about some of the foods that we can eat that also help to release stress at the cellular level, even mentally, and the physically that we're talking about. The first one I'd like to mention is avocado. For years, I've heard such beautiful benefits of eating that food, avocado. Plus, it tastes good too, doesn't it? But it is loaded with B vitamins. Well, we've already seen some of the benefits of B vitamins, and there are so many. But it's especially beneficial for healthy nerve function. And of course, that's what we're talking about here. It's also loaded with those omega-3 fatty acids. Again, beneficial in so many ways, and especially relative to our stress and our anxiety that we're talking about here. It helps to regulate mood. You know, sometimes when we talk about mood, you can tell sometimes people just by looking that, oh, I'm just not in a good mood today. And why? Probably goes back to some stressor that they're dealing with, and maybe the worry associated with it, and it puts you in a bad mood. Maybe somebody else said or did something to or around you that puts you in a bad mood. So we can eat the avocado. How about that? Because that'll help put you in a good mood. And then we were talking about omega-3s, and of course we know that they're very beneficial with fish. Probably one of the best, I don't want to say the best absolute, but a very good one, is salmon. But any type of fatty fish is very, very good. And again, very rich in your omega-3 fatty acids. Here's one that You're either going to really, really like it or really, really not like it. And it's so simplistic. It's so common for a breakfast food. Oatmeal. Yes, oatmeal. What it does, it triggers the brain to release serotonin. Berries. I think most of us are aware that berries, not only do they look good, they taste good, but they are incredibly beneficial for your health. But again, in the case of berries, they're very, very rich in vitamin C. And by the way, vitamin C is a huge vitamin to help relieve stress in the body. It helps with headaches. It's a giant stress reliever. Interestingly, we can use high levels of vitamin C, and I did say can use. If you get to the point where you're running to the bathroom a little too often, then back off on the vitamin C, because too much of it will cause you to make more trips than you want to make to the bathroom. Here's one that probably won't come as a surprise to you. I'm noticing more and more people talking about it, and for a lot of different reasons. Yes, dark chocolate. Not milk chocolate, but the dark chocolate. It can lower cortisol. It has health benefits. And again, cortisone is the stress hormone, so it can lower that we talked about that earlier. But at the same time, it boosts serotonin. That's where you're going to get a feel-good effect from your dark chocolate. So, if you're worried, you have difficulty sleeping, and when you go to bed you're counting sheep, how about if instead we count our blessings? This might sound very simplistic, and especially in today's high technology world and high stress world. But guess what? Simple things are the best. So count your blessings and enjoy.